Rita Berry runs a multiple seven-figure digital marketing agency with a team of 7 people at Rita Berry & Co. In this episode, we get an inside peek at a relationship-driven company that generates multiple 7 figures by serving 15 product-based businesses. Rita shares her revenue model, the simple yet effective marketing strategy to reach multiple 7 figures, and how she builds and hires an A+ team to protect her zone of genius. To the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you're a creative consultant or agency owner who wants to know what the roller coaster ride really looks like to grow your business from one to many, you're in the right place. My guest and I pull back the curtains on the realities of growing and running agencies of different sizes and what it takes to build a team. And if you're anything like me, you want more than the highlight reel. You want to learn from the mistakes of others so that you can stop short of making the same mistakes. I'm your host, Audrey Joy Kwan. I spend my days as a coach and consultant to multiple 6- and 7-figure agency owners. For the last 7 years, I've been behind the scenes helping people grow, lead, and operate small but mighty agencies. Here at the Small But Mighty Agency podcast, we'll uncover what works and, equally as important, what didn't work to get these business owners to where they are today. Hi, Rita. I'm so excited to have you here. Tell us about your agency, what you do, and who's on your team.
Well, I have a digital marketing agency, and we specifically specialize in Facebook ads, Facebook and Instagram advertising, as well as marketing measurement. So all the digital analytics, and so measuring all the things that everyone else does for marketing, we measure that for them. And the team, oh goodness, we've got some full-time Facebook ads managers that support me. We've got operational support, 2 copywriters, graphic design, video editors, a small and mighty team, truly.
How many people are on your team?
Goodness, like 4 and me. So 5 are like every day kind of in it. And then the 1 copywriter and the graphic design and video support is kind of contractor, peripheral sort of people.
Before we get into your team, I know that you started as a web designer. Can you tell us more about that entrepreneurial journey?
For sure. So initially, like even pre-web design, I was a blogger for like a minute. And then it was not my bag. So I did, initially prior to being entrepreneurial, I was a social worker and did that for 8 to 10 years, somewhere in there. And then got into the blogging, did web design from like 2009 through to 2000, it was probably 15, 16 as like the primary service that was driving revenue in the business. And then right around that 2015, 16 is when I had my second child. And like that was a really like natural pause and kind of re-examining things. And after that is when the website design service dropped. And I started just focusing on the paid social and the marketing metrics. So that was kind of a pretty clear line. There was definitely some overlapping here and there, but it was, that's kind of how that rolled.
How did that aha moment come about where you were like, okay, I've got to drop web design and just focus on paid ads?
Well, I'm not super observant sometimes with my own stuff, right? Where I was very much freelancing, like kind of solopreneur for that first web design stuff. And like, there was just a lot of things about it that I wasn't really enjoying anymore. Right? There was the fact that anyone who does web design or services just knows about, all the scope creep that can happen. I wasn't really good at kind of wrangling that, nor was I investing a lot of time in getting better at it. And it just like the project seemed to go on forever. I had a really hard time just conceptualizing how I would create, like how I would bring more people on. Like, and obviously there's a million web design agencies in the world. Like this problem has been solved, right? But for whatever reason, I got really stuck in just figuring out how to do that. It didn't seem, and it was also probably had a lot to do with the fact that I never spent the time to really formalize my process as far as the actual like design concepts and things and kind of like what the philosophy was on design. And slowly toward the end of kind of the design time in the 2014, 2015, in that particular time, there was a lot of clients that were coming to, they were kind of bigger clients that had Facebook ad services through other people. We'd always done analytics. Like I'm a naturally analytics person or analytical person. I went to university for that, for calculus and microbiology and all those really nerdy things. So that's a natural aptitude of my own. And during the web design era, I always integrated a lot of analytics, right? Like how can we make this website serve your business better rather than just be pretty? And so toward the end, when I was looking, I'm like, you know what, people started coming to me specifically for the analytics, right? So it was like, I don't need a web design, but I know you did this for so-and-so. Could you do this for me? And over the course of that year and a half period, when I started to actually pay attention, right, people were telling me, because there was always the question, like, is there a market for this? Like, would people actually pay you to like design their marketing measurement and do all these things? And that was really kind of the birth of it, and I got a lot of feedback from like other people, other online entrepreneurs, just other business owners, just to kind of reflect that back, because I had a hard time kind of seeing the forest for the trees there.
Web design and paid ads are two very different skill sets. How did you transition those skill sets?
See, I kind of think they're a lot the same, but I guess it's because the way I looked at web design is probably not the traditional way that a lot of people do look at web design. Mm-hmm. But for me, there was the creative aspects, right? So there's all of the kind of the image design, the customer journey design that comes with web design. I also feel mirrors into paid ads just the same, and really understanding marketing and buyer psychology. So those things transferred very easily for me. And then the creative piece around, just design. But then when we added in the kind of the analytics piece, that also was something I really enjoyed doing. There's so much data in the paid ads, and it's not just living in, like the Facebook platform. So much of the measurement we do is on the website, in the funnels, like not actually in Facebook. So all of those things for me, just kind of, it made it super challenging, which for me is really fun. I don't like when things are particularly easy. And so that was the marriage of it for me, is that you could bring in the creative side, the strategic side, the big picture marketing, and also the really nitty gritty detail of all of the analytics stuff.
I know that you have a passion for demystifying marketing metrics. And I've got to say, not everyone has a passion for demystifying marketing metrics. Can you share a little more about that and how that's integrated into your business?
So it's true, like my zone of flow is spreadsheets. Truly, it really is. And I know that's not everybody's favorite place to hang out. But the thing that really got me was that so often, and because our agency just works with female entrepreneurs, and that's something that we noticed really early, even when I was doing the website design, is there was a lot of questioning around, is my business working, right? Is this funnel? Is this marketing campaign? There was just like this natural level of self-doubt that often just existed just below the surface. And, we got to, and I still get to know my clients extremely well. We have like a small client list. And so we talk about all manners of things, right? And get into some personal topics sometimes if they're struggling with things. And when we saw all that doubt coming up, right? And then there's numbers in their business that can tell them the answers to these things. Like, we don't have to sit and think, my business doesn't work, or my campaign is garbage, or all of those like natural kind of knee-jerk reactions. There's actual real math that we can go and get that can tell you what's not working, what part isn't working, what part is working, right? And like help to make it a little bit less judgment free, a little bit more neutral, and remove some of the drama from some of the numbers. And that's really what I try to do with the marketing metrics, is we don't get, like, we can get super complicated if you want to, but most people don't need that. Most people just need to have, a neutral dashboard, neutral numbers to reflect back, and have someone like there to talk them down if something doesn't go well, as to why it didn't go well. What lessons can we learn from this? And we can detach it from a personal failing and actually just make it like, how do we use this information to improve? So that's very much how I use marketing metrics. We make it very friendly and unscary, and I speak English around numbers and not like all nerd all the time, which is really helpful. So I've heard, and just making some of the more complex topics simple because they don't need to be complicated.
What's something that people seem to misunderstand about metrics in marketing?
I think the biggest thing is the complexity of it, like that people assume that it has to be complicated. Just because we all have like our own thoughts about numbers and metrics and our skill sets around that. So early on, we all have feelings about whether we're good or bad at math and we're numbers people or we're not numbers people. And so often when people come in, they're like, I don't know that I have the capacity, right? Like they're just assuming that there's going to be 10,000 spreadsheets and really complicated metrics and really just, like it's going to be a full-time job to analyze this stuff. And it really doesn't need to be. And when we build things out and when we're doing a measurement build for somebody and helping them understand their marketing metrics, my job as the service provider and somebody who has done the 10,000 hours plus of work here is to make it really simple for them, right? It's to know when they can ignore something because it's fine and they can work on something else, right? It's knowing how to prioritize areas of improvement. It's knowing how to spot those opportunities. And it really doesn't need to be nearly as complicated as people think it does. And from what I've seen for, unless you're like Adobe or like some Fortune 500 company who has like a whole group of data analysts who like live in a dark corner in their business, you don't need to, like most businesses, at least the businesses I work with, which are usually around about 500,000 to about 50 million is where we hang out. They don't need a fleet of data analysts, right? They just need to understand those main metrics. And when there's issues, we can dig deep into it, but we don't always need to kind of surface all of that complexity for them. And yeah, it's usually just a lot easier than people think it is.
I think people will be happy to hear that.
Distilling it down to just the most important essence of the numbers, that I think is probably the trickiest thing for people if they don't have a ton of experience, because it's hard to know like what is the important number that I should be paying attention to and which ones are kind of extraneous. So in the beginning, that's a really hard judgment call to make, which is why people often bring in an agency like mine where we can come in and help them with that.
With that being said, what are the important numbers that people should be paying attention to in a campaign when they're working with you?
So we'll vastly depend on the business. We don't work with a lot of service owners. So that's why I'm like being one myself. We don't do that work, but they don't usually have the volume that is necessary. But the biggest like kind of litmus test for a number is if in knowing this number, can I take action on it? That's always the first thing that I tell people, because a lot of people like to collect a whole bunch of numbers and then they just look at them in a spreadsheet and literally I'm like, okay, now that you have this number, what would you do with that number? And they're like, I don't even know. Like, that's not usually a number that we collect, because unless it's actionable, like a conversion rate on a sales page, for example, because a lot of our people that we support are coaches, consultants, people with courses, things of that nature. And if we're looking at what is a conversion rate on the sales page, by knowing that number, we can either know that sales page needs improvement, right? Because it's not where we want it at a benchmark. Or we can know that actually it is functioning well. So how about we worry about other things like getting more people to the sales page, or work on after sales offers and sell more things to existing customers. So we can see that this isn't something we really need to attend to right now, versus this is a real emergency. Like 0.5% of the people that come here are converting. Do we have an audience coming to the page problem? Do we have an offer problem? Do we have a sales page problem? Like all of those sorts of things are really helpful. But that number, conversion rates especially, any kind of like ratio numbers are usually really helpful around like open rates, click rates, all those sorts of things that help you see whether the intended action that you thought someone was going to take is that actually happening at the rate that it should? And industry benchmarks are pretty widely available where people can see like what should a sales page, conversion rate be and things like that. And then you can judge whether you kind of fall in that and whether it needs some attention.
Thank you for breaking that down. I want to switch gears here and talk about business building. Can you share a bit about your agency and what do you think helped you transform into the business that you have today?
It's a hard one. It's always tricky because I haven't done any marketing in any kind of substantial way traditionally, right? Like not one-to-many kind of marketing. But the real game changer for me personally, like when kind of making that pivot to it being me as a solopreneur and freelancer into actually building an agency that has employees and all of that sort of fun stuff, was that I realized really early that as an agency, I don't need a lot of clients, right? Like we hang out around 15 clients between the ads and the metrics. And that's it, right? And like we could do more, we'd have to hire people, but that's about it. So I was like, if I only need 15 people, I need the right 15 people, right? And in the beginning, it was literally, I just need the right 5 people. 15's even bigger now. And so I just made it my job to get into rooms with people that were the right people. And not in a sleazy, salesy, I'm going to schmoozy network kind of way. But I'm like, where are people hanging out that I think are cool, that have the same values as I do, that, have the same vision of what the world looks like, and I think are awesome humans that I want to hang out with. Those are going to be either people that would be great clients for me, or those people are going to know great people because they're probably going to hang out with other people who are also equally awesome. And just through that activity of about a year of really concerted effort, right, of just making sure, and I'm naturally introverted. This is painful for me to do. So it might sound easy for some people, but this is like a real challenging activity for me. It was like signing up for really small masterminds, going to no conferences, like heaven help me, I hate those things. Just going to really like those small retreats and the small masterminds and just really deep connections with people over a course of a year. And it didn't even feel like work because it was a lot of fun. I was just building really great friendships. And from that, because my service offering is so unique, that when I'm in the right place with the right people, that work just finds me. People will like walk across the room and like, I have a client. I know someone you need to talk to, right? Like that happens all the time. Because especially being female in the digital analytics space, that's a very rare, it's like a little bit of a unicorn. And that was it. So it's just like one-on-one showing up, being of service, making great friends. And then the rest literally took care of itself.
It sounds like by knowing the exact number of clients that you want in your business, it made your marketing stress-free because it gave you a compass on exactly what you needed to do in your business to get those clients. How did you determine that 15 clients was the perfect number for your business?
So it started out more around 5 and just get some to pay the bills. And then also the proof of concept around the marketing metric service specifically. And then from there, it's more, honestly, it's been a lot of like analysis of the actual, the revenue from the clients, the profit margins. That's actually where the 15 came from. But we kind of matured into the 15 over the last number of years. But initially it was kind of like, let's just get the right butts in the seats as far as clients, prove the concept that people actually want to buy this service, and then see how much time it takes to serve them really well, because we believe in like just exceptional client experience. And then we also, like, we've still never lost anybody? No, we've never lost an ads client still. Like we've let some people go that weren't a good fit, as far as like, just like after a couple months, we're like, this isn't a good values fit for the agency and for the client as well. But once we get people, we usually don't lose them because like we work hard for them. And we like become a really integral part of their team. So retention's not an issue for us. It's more just bringing in the right people is important.
Having never lost a client says so much about your service offering. How do you measure client success?
Like our yearly revenue goals are actually client revenue goals as opposed to the agency revenue goals. So we base our success each month, and that's like one of the main metrics that we track is how much revenue did we help a client make? Like, so trackable revenue, because obviously they make a lot of money outside of the paid acquisition, but we track just as an internal metric, if we're helping our clients grow by X amount each month or by X amount each year, and we're helping them reach their goals, I've just found that the rest just takes care of itself. And I haven't really, it was about 3 years ago that we switched to that model. I found it much calmer for me because I am an Enneagram 3. If there is like a strengths finder or any kind of like any kind of way I can be evaluated, it is like an achieving hardcore drive. Like that is just me. And I just started to get really frustrated that every time I hit like a revenue goal, I would pick the revenue goal up and I would move it further away from me, right? Like I make 500. No, let's go make $1 million now. And it was like, why don't I just be happy with whatever revenue goal I have? and then just worry about it in a different way. And so we flipped it to worry about client revenue 3 or 4 years ago now. And we've made so much more money each of those years. And I just find it, it feels better for me. Like I love getting up every morning and really focusing on the client success, as cheesy as that sounds. Like when they hit huge goals, it is so exciting for me and the team. And that I find more motivating. Because like I've got enough money, I'm good. So it's that part for me just isn't, this agency makes far more money than I ever imagined I would make in my life, and so that stopped meaning as much as seeing a client hit their goals. That's just it's more of a motivator for me.
It sounds like you offer two distinct services. There's the metrics and the ads. So how does working with you on metrics looks like, and how does working with you on ads look like? So
with the metrics service, we do a project-based service on the front end. So that's really going into like the planning, all of the building. So obviously there's a lot of technical work with Tag Manager and all of the connections and all those things that happen, building out dashboards, spreadsheets. Basically that like the deliverable at the end of that is all of those pieces that the client can then use to go and make all those marketing decisions and evaluate what's going on. So that's just the one kind of chunk. I think that's the only project-based service we have now. And then once people do that, what we find is that a number of clients want to continue in a retainer because they love just once a month, once a week, depending on the volume of marketing they do, where they just want to get on a call. And like the same way that a bookkeeper and accountant reviews your money is basically what I do with their metrics and their marketing. And lots of clients after that service have found that incredibly valuable. Some bigger teams have people that are like super number people on their team that really like to take over. But most of the time we end up either in a retainer agreement just on metrics, or they end up signing up for ads with us. So it's pretty like they're highly linked. I think we only have one or two clients now that are in our ad service that didn't come through metrics. And so then with the Facebook side of things, that is not a retainer model, but it's like a month over month. We don't have any contracts other than the initial service offering. We like them to stay with us for 3 months because it takes that long to kind of figure everything out and start getting good results for them. But after that, it's just month to month ongoing. But once again, we don't lose clients very often. So it ends up being just an awful lot of recurring revenue.
This leads me to my next question. I think it could be on the minds of our listeners. How do your clients pay you?
Yes, we do 3 different models depending on the client. We have just straight up like not a small fee, but like a straight up retainer fee, quote unquote. But so a fixed rate, there we go, each month, because they're, under 25,000, 30,000, like whatever, depending on the client's ad spend and business model, that can vary a bit, but there's always like this base amount that it always is. If they're spending really, really high or have a really complex business, because we have some lower spending clients that like have 27 different products, which is a different animal, right? Than someone who spends lots with one product. So it's very business dependent, but then we do charge the percentage on top. And then we actually have a couple of clients that are on a revenue model based on like we get a percentage of the revenue that we build for them. So it really depends. And there's kind of like a decision tree I go through, but that's just mostly just for a lot of experience and like getting into those situations where you realize you're overworking to the point that you're eating all your profits, and then other people, you were charging too much for the amount of work, right? It's just all of that kind of thing. The learnings over time.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I don't think there's enough transparency about how agencies charge their clients, and it's insightful to hear how it works in your thriving business. Now, I know that you have a passion for helping women reach financial freedom, and you interweave that into your business. How does that play out?
That was a kind of a natural progression in the beginning too, where I just found that women have a different energy in business. A lot of the women that I was interacting with, it was just a very different energy to get on the call, talk about different things. I'm so relationship driven, which you can kind of see throughout like all of the threads of things. Heck, I was a social worker, right? Like so much relationships mean so much to me. And I just found that with the female clients, it was just a different level of relationship. There were certain things that a client of mine nicknamed them private jet problems, but not that she has a private jet, but it was like, who do you talk to in your space that is like when you're discussing, like you have a multi-million-dollar business and you're having some struggles in that, whether it's how much money you're making or the worthiness you have around that, or dynamics with a partner because of that, like all of these, like those social underpinnings that exist that we just found that like with a lot of our different clients, we were talking about that stuff, and that we're not so much like you just dispatch a task kind of agency. We're really integral in the team. I do on-sites with a number of our clients, before times, did on-sites with clients, met them in person. Like we're really an integral part of their team. And that just felt different with the female entrepreneurs. There was just a different energy to it. I found the female entrepreneurs spent their money differently, like the revenue they made out of their business, how they paid their teams, how they supported their communities, what they were doing for their families. It was just something that I was really interested in supporting and that felt really good to be a part of, and something that was, just a little bit different. So that's kind of where it came from. It was just kind of being aware of what spaces felt good for me to be in and what really lit me up. And that's actually become, as we've moved along throughout the years, it's become more and more important for people. Like I actually will have people do discovery calls now that like that's a huge driver of why they get a hold of us, is because they really believe that being as a female business owner, maybe in a male dominated space, having that support of other female entrepreneurs who know what it's like, who can have really candid conversations about a variety of different things really is of value to them.
I think what stands out for me is how you focus on demystifying marketing metrics for women without making them feel like they should know better. And in fact, you create comfort and confidence for them because you know and accept it's not their zone of genius.
Exactly. Because when you're confident in what the marketing is and how the marketing is driving revenue, it changes everything, because it's no longer, you don't feel like you're guessing, even if you weren't guessing the whole time, but just to objectively see the success that you've created, I think really helps to push down some of that doubt and also help you kind of take those bigger steps toward bigger and better things, because you do feel a lot more confident. And that success is all what they made in the business, right? I'm just reflecting it back for them and showing them. And then sometimes just like talking, I said like half the time I feel like a life coach, half the time where, we're like, well, no, that's really just a drama thought about the numbers, right? Like, let's actually look at what the numbers say. So that's what it really has come to be ultimately. And it's so much fun. And, I once had a really successful business owner who's one of our clients. She said she had tried to hire out for this metrics things before. And she said, if I have one more 20-something boy who lives in his mom's basement trying to tell me how to run my business, she's like, I'm going to lose it. And this woman was like an 8-figure, right? She's just like, no, just no. And it's a very different vibe that I bring, because these women are incredibly powerful, accomplished, smart, all these things. They maybe just don't feel comfortable with digital analytics because they're amazing at this other thing, and they should never spend their time worrying about learning how to be good at digital analytics, right? Like that's not a value judgment. It's just that we all have different skills. And so it's just a very different energy that we bring to the table as just like a grown-up lady, as opposed to all the different people that they've often kind of been exposed to over the years.
Before we get back to the episode, I want to invite you to the free Strategic Connections Roundtable, where creatives, consultants, and service-based business owners can meet new business connections without the awkwardness of traditional networking. It's a curated experience where the group fit is curated so that connections and conversations thrive. That means that every month, a Strategic Connections Roundtable will bring together a group of service-based business owners in similar stages of business who can benefit from knowing each other, so that you can make connections easier, share what your business offers, discover new resources, and have an opportunity to mastermind a challenge. Save your free seat at audreyjoykwan.com/strategic-connections-roundtable. Above all, I care about genuine connections and authentic relationships in business. If that's you, check out the Roundtable and curated networking experience today. You can get all the details and onto the free invite list over at audreyjoykwan.com/strategic-connections-roundtable, or click on the link in the show notes right there in your podcast app. Back to the show. Rita, to have the business that you have today, you obviously had to build a team. Can you share a bit more about how growing a team has changed you?
Oh, that has literally been the hardest thing, like out of all the things. Because like doing the work, right, as I'm sure you know, doing the work is easy. I mean, you just get me in there all day, all the time. I would just, and I still, like my team has to kick me out sometimes. They're like, get out of here, Rita. This is our stuff. Because I just love doing like, oh, this is so fun. And being able to step back and realizing that my place isn't often anymore to do the actual work, right? Like my job is a lot more strategy-based, reviewing the work, right? Kind of like seeing what the patterns and trends are, advising the clients based on that, but it's not doing the technical production work anymore. And so building the team and being I'm like detail-oriented so ridiculously, but also the fact that to me, you don't put out work that has errors in it, right? Like I don't believe in perfectionism, but I do believe that there is a certain degree of error-free that can exist in the world, especially for the work that we do. And I think there's very different things. It was hard to pull all the information out of my brain and also just realize all the information that was living in my mind that I didn't realize wasn't documented well, and entrusting other people to carry it out with the level of care and thoughtfulness and like mental rigor that I would want them to. Like all of that stuff was just so hard because a lot of it was making sure that the SOPs and processes and the systems of my business were amazing, but also there was just the personal effort of I have to hand this over to somebody because I literally can't and this ultimately will serve my clients better because Rita needs to be on vacation sometimes, right? Or like I need to be able to be sick without causing an impact to their business. And if it's just me, that's truly that's a really risky situation. And so building the team, there was a lot of mental work that went into that, to just releasing it slowly and seeing that everything was fine, and just having people that are also just as passionate about these clients and what we're doing in the world has been really cool. But it's still constant work because I can hear my head all the time going I could just take care of this. No, you need to not just take care of this. There's someone on the team who is paid to take care of this task and who will do a wonderful job if I can just slow down enough to, think about tomorrow and the next week rather than what's just best in the moment. So constant work. And still, I foresee that as constant work in the future.
It's natural for business owners to think that they can take care of all the things. I call this the self-employment mindset trap. You start your business in a similar fashion as many people I work with as a self-employed service-based provider. And how we get our businesses off the ground is by doing lots by ourselves, and it's imprinted into us. Building a team is an act of rewiring all that. Rita, you also mentioned that there were some other mindset stuff that came up for you about building a team. Tell us more.
I realized that I had some trust issues, which had come up, which I would never as a person say that if anyone who knows me would say Rita has trust issues, not at all. But it was more that, is this going to get done the way that I think it should get done? And it wasn't there was any evidence to prove me otherwise, right? Everything was fine. But I was just neurotic about is this done well? All of these. So a trust, huge issue, but we've also worked, but it's also what I realized was that the team, trust goes both ways, right? So there's also how do we build trust into the team as from a cultural standpoint around everyone trusting each other to do what they're supposed to do. And some of what I'm supposed to do is stay in my own lane, right? So there's those pieces too. So that piece, just who am I to do XYZ? I had that one I think I've kind of crushed, but that was definitely in the beginning. I had a lot of struggles with that, just worthiness around what makes me so special to be able to, have this agency and all of the stuff that comes with this and work with the people that we work with. Some of that, I wouldn't necessarily say it's imposter syndrome so much, but it was definitely a worthiness thing. Who am I to deserve all of this? And that really had to get sorted out quickly because that one gets reflected back to you so fast and can really kind of blow up your business if you're not actually on top of that one. So a lot of things, just little things like that would pop up all the time that now I'm getting a lot better at slowing down and evaluating things that every week, part of my weekly routine now is when I do a weekly review. It's what things did I avoid this week, which is a really big helpful one for me because I always avoid things for a reason. And once I started to slow down and stop just being so busy and like identifying points of friction in the business, whether it's my own internal points of friction, things that I'm noticing, like maybe a process isn't right or a team member is struggling with a certain particular type of task or things like that, that I could actually apply some of my more strategic, less knee-jerk reaction brain to and come up with better solutions and just to start be aware of the stuff that's going on instead of just being busy. So like constantly defaulting to busy has been really helpful because honestly, the mindset stuff, like every week, it's a new thing.
In the role of a business owner, we're in the mentality of go, go, go. But as we switch to leading a team and helping people on our team succeed, what changes is that we need to slow the roll. And that can mean taking a look at our own leadership skills. Rita, can you share the makeup of your team and how that has changed over time?
I went like mostly for contractors right in the beginning, but I didn't have like any contractors that were kind of fulfilling what I call like business function roles. Like it was more initially where I had a copywriter that was on contract, and then I had graphic design support, and then I was doing all of the actual like ads management work. That's how that looked in the beginning. And then I had an additional contractor who would support around the like metrics builds and things like that. So that, it was like, I was all over the place, but then there was like these like secondary disciplines that I brought in as contractors. That's how it looked in the very beginning.
And what inspired the change to full-time employees?
Needing to own people's time was like because truly like I embrace kind of the letter of the law with contractors. They don't have to show up at any particular time. And that is very much how I view my contractors now. That is very much how I viewed them then. It's like, this is the chunk of work. This is when it needs to get done. How and when that gets done is totally up to you because it is none of my business, right? And so once we got to a place where there was enough client work that there was no way I could bring another person. Like it was just a lot that I probably should have hired an employee well before then. But it was when I needed someone else to start managing the ads, like, and take on clients themselves. And I needed them to be present during the day, Monday to Friday, and there's still a lot of flexibility there. I have lots of a team member who likes to work in the evenings. He likes to work out in the morning. And so that that is fine. Right. But it's like every day, here we are, there's vacation, there's all those things. And for me, that's when the switch happened, when I realized I need this person to be here at a certain time. And I need to have some boundaries and guidelines around what that participation in my business looks like. And it needs to be a lot more controlled than a contractor was. And it really does end up kind of breaking the way, if a person performs a vital business function, they need to be an employee. And if someone is a project-based person, they need to be a contractor. That's very much how it lives in my business now.
One of the greatest benefits of having an employee is that they're focused on your business versus a contractor whose attention can be on their own business, multiple different other contracts, as well as potentially even working with competing businesses. To have someone exclusively focused on helping you grow your business only happens when you have a full-time employee.
Right. And when you said that, the one thing that popped up for me was that a contractor, ultimately, you're their client, but they're ultimately serving their business as their client. Right. So there's these competing goals that exist that are not bad, but they're different. And it's just when somebody is there showing up in your business every day, and their goal is to either grow, help your business grow or help your clients or do all this. It just is a different thing than when you're dealing with a different business that's got their own, needs and wants and vision and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Thank you for eloquently saying that.
No, I never thought of it that way before. And just because I'm oh, right, they're serving two different, sets there. That makes so much sense.
Rita, how are you finding, or how have you gone about finding top talent for your business?
Well, most of the folks, I think everybody almost, has been through that network, that relationship network that I've created over the years that was, just getting to meet cool people, right? And when people know that you're a good place to work and everything else, it's really helpful. I think one of the biggest struggles for me is that we're a Canadian-based company, so any employees that I hire are Canadian, but a lot of the people, I only have one Canadian client, everyone else is American. So that being that there's a lot of people, I could hire a contractor, no problem. There's probably a million people that could get recommended to me as great contractors for certain things, but I need to hire Canadians for employees. So that's always been a little bit of an interesting situation. But for me, that's always been the first place, like just through my own personal network or, someone who knows someone who knows someone, the weak ties, as they say, and just communicating with lots of people and letting them know we're hiring, this is what we're looking for. I also find that when people know me really well, that they can not only give a amazing endorsement because, I'm obviously not asking people that don't like me, they can give an amazing endorsement of me as someone to work for, but they also know me. And they know what I wouldn't put up with. They know what would drive me insane. They know the type of person they wouldn't refer to me, right? And they would. So that's what I've always found to be like a really good pipeline. They're like, I know that this is an important value to you. That these are important skill sets and just the culture of your business. I think this person would be a great fit. I'm going to connect you guys. Or it's been like our last hire that we just had. She's still on probation, so she's still within 90 days. The newest one, that was the first time that we actually went like outside and did like a full to-do around like posting to job boards and everything else. And it was the first time we kind of run through that system in that quantity. So that was an interesting process. And there's definitely things we would refine with it, but made them do videos as to why they would want to work with the agency. I do a hiring project for them that's a little bit hard. And I always say, like, I want it to be just hard enough that most people could not do it to 100% perfection, because there's a variety of reasons why I think that's helpful. But we give them a hiring project, something that doesn't take a ton of time, because I don't believe in unpaid labor for that sort of thing. And then, lots of filters that way. And honestly, by the time they get to actually doing their first interview with me, the vast majority of the people that I interviewed would have been a great skill fit for the agency. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, we're really looking for culture fit and a number of different, like some of those softer skills. And that's how we did this time. And so far, so good. She's lovely. The person that's with us. So, definitely say that worked really well for us, but it was a very different flavor than hiring through network contacts, for sure.
I'm with you on that. Having filters in play, like hiring projects, saves a lot of time and money. Anyone who's built a team can resonate with how painful it is to hire someone only to figure out it's not going to work and having to start over again. That's painful. There's resources that we're spending on the person, yes, but personally for me, the time part is what hurts the most.
It does. That's always the fear too that I have, where I'm like, you know what, the money thing is really secondary, because it's true. Like the older I get, the more I feel time in my bones, right? And the expiring of it. And that really just translates into my business too, where I'm like, to invest not just my time, but this person's time, the whole team's time, because everyone's rooting for them and really trying to make it a really good fit and getting to know them. It's a lot of energy and time that everybody's putting into it. And so we had hundreds of applications this time. It was like really quite overwhelming, but all those roadblocks we put in place, people self-selected themselves right out. Like it was just, people were just like, no thanks, I don't want this job. Like, and people were arguing for their own limitations. It was so amazing to see, right? I'm like, never argue for your own limitations. Never do that. But everybody was just saying, oh no, that's too hard. And it was like very small things to step over, right? Like the steps got progressively bigger as they went through the process, but it was really quite remarkable. But by the time we got to the end, we really knew that the people that we were selecting from had at least all of the qualities that we could measure, plus multiple interviews with multiple people around that soft skills and, culture fit and things. So it was definitely a process, but always in the back of my head is like, how can we do this better so that the time that we do invest, we get the result we want? And then also, honestly, like being somewhat releasing myself from the fact that if it doesn't work, it's better to like end it early than to hold on. Because the processes in the business around hiring and onboarding now are so well developed that I know if we have to let somebody go or if somebody leaves, that how we do this in our business is already really well defined. So we're not guessing, like 90% of it's handled by the team, right? So we can all get that moving really quickly. So that has been an extra as the team has been built, because that wasn't always true. We didn't have a lot of really good systems in the beginning around that now I know that when someone inevitably leaves for whatever reason, it's not going to be that hard. It's just going to be my own brain being like, oh no, we have to do this again. But at least when the processes are there, it doesn't feel so scary because I know that we have the systems to hire a good person again. So that's been really reassuring for me, is knowing that all those systems are there.
Do you subscribe to the concept of hire slow, fire fast?
Yes, profoundly.
Yeah.
It's like it took months to hire this new person, like literally months. And it was like sometimes the rest of the team, and we had members of the team that were carrying far more than they should have. And because there was just some decisions we made about bringing on some new clients, and all of this at the same time, right? But it was actually like a team decision of we can choose not to bring on new clients because this is going to take a while. But we need everyone on board that we're going to take our time and do this properly, or we're just not going to bring on new clients, right? And so everyone was on board, which was an important part for me because we're small, right? Like you can't just kind of like go rogue. Even as the owner, I try to make sure that we're all kind of mentally on board with what's happening. And they were, because it took us months to go through all of those applications and just get everything scheduled and all the multiple interviews. Like it takes a long time to get all that done. But yeah, the firing thing, I don't know. I usually know pretty quickly. I don't know about you, but like when I'm like, this is not going to be good.
One of the worst things people can do is hire out of desperation.
Yes.
I think I see that happen more often than not. So I commend you in really sitting down with your team and being able to say, okay, if this is something we want to commit to, we're going to commit to it as a team and slow down and bring in the right person, but having the right processes in play.
Right. And they feel too, because we are a close-knit group. We root each other on. Like it's a very, like, that's just the kind of atmosphere it is. And they also care greatly about who's added to that. Right. So we really do all have the same kind of vision for the team and like desire for the way that things are working. And nobody wants to see someone just hastily thrown into that and like throwing everything off, or someone who doesn't care as much, like all those things. So having that shared culture and those shared values amongst the team has been really helpful, because even though, even when I can say this is going to be rough for like the next month while we're figuring this all out, depending on what my time commitments are too, with different clients, we're like, we'll figure it out. But like, unless everybody's on board, then we're not going to take that new client. And this, this is how we're going to manage that, because having them on board and saying, no, take your time. We want the right person here. We totally stand behind you with doing it that way is really important for me, because we're ultimately all working for the same goals. And I would hate to, just go rogue on them and not really take them into account, because it's way too small a team to do that right now.
Rita, now that you're a multi-7-figure entrepreneur with an agency, what do you foresee for yourself and the business that you have?
My goals with the agency are really to get better at doing what we do. Like if there's a strength finder in the world, not only am I a high achiever, but I love mastery. Like it's not the goal that is super important to me, but it's like, how good can I get at this? How deep can I understand it? Just like really like the super geeky things that make no one want to be my friends in high school are the things that make me a really good business owner at doing this kind of stuff, right? Like I just nerd out on all this stuff and I love it, and the team loves it. And so for us and for me personally, the goal is always just, how can we do this better? If we can we do the same amount of work in 6 hours a day instead of 8? And then everyone just gets paid the same and works 2 less hours. Like that kind of stuff is super fun for me to think about. And like seeing the team and getting to pay them well and take care of them and give them benefits and like all the cool stuff that I wish I could have, I couldn't find it in the world. So I made it for myself and for them. It's fun, so that's really what does it for me now. Working with cool people, like the businesses that we get to support, seeing the changes they're making in the world that we're a small part of is really cool. It just become different things, because the money's really stopped being a big driver, but now it's, how can we be a great place to work? How can we get results easier and more efficiently? And how can we get better at what we do? How can we serve our clients, better than anyone else? All of these sorts of things are really where my goals are now. And then once again, I find the revenue honestly just takes care of itself when you serve people in that way and with that mindset of just trying to do the best work you can for them. it really has just taken care of it.
I'm all for that. Serving people creates results.
Exactly.
So what keeps you inspired and at your best right now?
For me, honestly, my team has been helping me out. This has been me, like, because I have a tendency to overwork. So for me, being at my best is like not doing that because I don't have enough thinking time. I don't have enough learning time. As I said, like when I start to do too much is when I start to cut out my learning time and I start to cut out just that strategic vision, thinking, big picture time that business owners need. And so for me to be at my best, I need a lot of quiet time, which I know so many people don't get. With COVID, right? Like I've got my kids home, we're like all in the mess. So for me, it's a lot of just peaceful introspection. I'm highly introverted. I like to be by myself. And my team has really helped me, especially in the last number of months when we've been really, really busy, like actually helping me guard my own time and reflecting back to me a lot of the things like where my weaknesses are, like over helping, over committing, those sorts of things, and being able to reflect that back to me so that I can see that I'm doing it and just really protect my own personal time. So as long as I have time to think and go for walks and be introspective and just like be in my own head, honestly, is when I'm always at my best. And inspiration just comes from a lot of, honestly, just other people doing what we do. My clients, weirdly enough, they're always like innovating and doing amazing things and just learning from other people that are doing really cool things, whether it's in my industry or not. I always find that now that we're kind of at a place of experience with what we do, the places that I get inspired by most are other people that are like really experienced with, maybe they've been running an ad agency, for 10 years too. And just having just those kind of conversations that I find really inspiring, just with the level of like earned knowledge that these people have from being in the trenches so long. Love very deep conversations with people like that as well. I find that so inspiring to see what people are doing in this space.
You're speaking to a fellow introvert. So when you say that quiet time equals strategic thinking and your best thinking, that's totally me too.
Doesn't it sound amazing? It was just my birthday last week. And that was what my husband, he's like, I'm getting you a week's vacation by yourself when we can do that again. He's like, that is your birthday present, because I know there's literally nothing on the planet that you would like more than that. And that literally does sound like the most incredible thing to me.
Tell us where we can find you online.
There's one place because there is no marketing. I mean, you can go and find me on social media, but we don't actually post there very often. So the place to find me is actually on my website, which is ritaberry.co, and that's BARRY.co. And that's where we live. That's the only real web presence we have. But that kind of explains all the things that we do and has lots of really in-depth case studies exploring different things that we've done for clients over the years.
Rita, thank you so much for giving us an inside peek at your agency.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes. It would mean the world to me. Or send a screenshot on Instagram while tagging me at Audrey Joy Kwan.